Imagine a bug so deeply embedded in the Linux kernel that it has been hiding in plain sight for 15 years. Today, we are looking at GhostLock, a critical use-after-free vulnerability in the kernel's Futex priority inheritance code. This isn't a theoretical attack. It allows any unprivileged local user to escalate straight to root on almost every major enterprise distribution running today. Why does this matter to your daily operations? Because if an attacker gains even the lowest level of access to your server, say through a compromised web app, GhostLock gives them the keys to the entire kingdom. In this video, we are going to break down exactly how the GhostLock exploit manipulates kernel memory, why Alma Linux had to issue emergency patches, and how you can secure your systems. We'll also cover a 16-year-old KVM escape bug and critical updates for OpenSSH and UniFi. Let's get into it and see what this exploit is all about. To understand GhostLock, we need to look at how the Linux kernel handles priority inheritance. When multiple threads compete for the same resources, the kernel uses Futexes, fast user space mutexes, to manage who gets access and when. Priority inheritance is designed to prevent a situation where a high priority task is stalled waiting for a low priority task to release a lock. If a low priority thread holds a lock that a high priority thread needs, the kernel temporarily boosts the low priority thread so it can finish faster and release the resource. GhostLock, tracked as CVE-2026-43499, exploits a flaw in how the kernel cleans up these priority states. Under specific, highly concurrent conditions, an attacker can manipulate the Futex system to free a block of memory, but keep a pointer to it. This is a classic use-after-free scenario. By carefully timing their requests, an attacker can overwrite that freed memory with their own malicious payload. When the kernel inevitably accesses that memory again, it executes the attacker's code with full kernel privileges, instantly granting root access. It is a complex chain, but public exploits make it dangerously reliable. What makes GhostLock particularly alarming is its age. This flaw has existed in the priority inheritance code for roughly 15 years. Because it requires very specific timing to trigger, it remained hidden from standard fuzzing and code audits until now. The impact is massive. It affects almost the entire enterprise Linux ecosystem. Alma Linux was one of the first to respond, pushing emergency kernel patches out of band. Red Hat quickly followed with K-patch updates for both their 4.18 and 5.14 kernel streams, meaning you can patch without rebooting if you have live patching enabled. And GhostLock didn't arrive alone. Disclosed alongside it is another kernel memory corruption flaw, dubbed Januscape. While the full technical details of Januscape are still under embargo, Alma Linux has explicitly called for community testers to validate the patched kernels, indicating the fix involves significant changes to core memory management. If you are managing any RHEL derivative servers or Debian and Ubuntu systems, checking your kernel version and applying these updates should be your top priority this week. Do not wait for your regular maintenance window. Speaking of ancient bugs, the kernel isn't the only place hiding legacy flaws. This week, security researchers flagged a 16-year-old vulnerability in the Linux KVM hypervisor. KVM is the backbone of modern cloud infrastructure, powering everything from AWS to your local Proxmox server. The vulnerability allows an attacker who has root access inside a virtual machine to break out of the virtualization sandbox and execute code on the underlying host operating system. This is the nightmare scenario for cloud providers and anyone running multi-tenant infrastructure. KVM Escape completely shatters the isolation model. If an attacker breaches one container or VM, they can theoretically pivot to the host and compromise every other VM running on that same physical hardware. The fact that a bug like this survived in the KVM codebase for 16 years highlights the immense difficulty of securing complex hypervisors. We are still waiting for the full CVE details and technical write-ups to drop for this specific KVM flaw. But if you run virtualization clusters, keep a very close eye on your distribution security mailing list this week. When the patches land, you will need to apply them immediately. By the way, I just checked our channel analytics and it turns out about 90% of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet. If you've been getting value from these Linux deep dives, hitting that subscribe button is the best free way to support the channel, and make sure you never miss the next one. Moving out of the kernel, we have a massive update for OpenSSH. Version 10.4 was just released and it patches 8 separate security vulnerabilities. The most critical is CVE 2026-60002, a client-side use-after-free flaw triggered during key re-exchange. If you connect to a malicious or compromised SSH server, that server can exploit this flaw to crash your SSH client or potentially execute code on your local machine. It's a stark reminder that SSH is a two-way street. The client must be just as secure as the server. The 10.4 update also fixes path traversal issues in SFTP/SCP, where a malicious server could overwrite files outside your intended download directory. It also patches a flaw in the authentication delay mechanism that was weakening brute force protections. Update your OpenSSH packages as soon as they hit your repos. Finally, if you manage network infrastructure using Ubiquiti's UniFi platform, you have a busy week ahead. Ubiquiti has disclosed multiple critical vulnerabilities across their application suite, with CVSS scores hitting the absolute maximum of 10.0, including critical scores of 9.9 and 9.1 for talk and access applications. The most severe is a command injection flaw in UniFi Connect due to improper access control. Attackers can exploit this to execute arbitrary commands on the host system. UniFi Talk suffers from an authenticated SQL injection, and UniFi Access has both command injection and privilege escalation flaws. Because these controllers often sit in privileged network segments, a compromise here is devastating. You need to upgrade UniFi Talk to version 4.2.29, Access to 5.2.2, and Connect to 3.4.20 immediately. Check the Ubiquiti security bulletins for the full details. That covers the critical updates for this week. Patch your kernels, update OpenSSH, and secure your UniFi controllers. If you want to support the channel directly and get some cool perks, consider clicking the join button below to become a pseudo user or get root access. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.